after a very hot week, and the tail end of which had cooled down, I went and played some XX. We're back here at Summer Storm, and what has happened so far? I mean, other than my legs being more fucked up than usual, I got them bound now. That ankle is really in bad shape. All right, so we finished the first day and the night reorganization, and we're ready to slip into, I guess, the June 30th 4 a.m. turn. And at this point, forces have, so the Confederates have pretty much made it onto the board. The one exception is I got Imboden here in his encampment. But for the Union, quite a few of their forces are a little to the south and west of the battlefield and in encampments. And they'll be breaking those. But in terms of what's actually on the field, yeah, we got 3rd Corps deployed up here facing the Confederate 2nd Corps. And we got Stuart's Cav pushing against the Union Cav. Now, one argument for why the Union doesn't have a Cav leader was pointed out to me, which is that Meade basically kept Pleasanton, who was the Cav Corps commander, out of the fight. But if there's going to be a Cav Corps marker where you collect up CCPs, there has to be a Cav leader, right? I don't know if there was an intention to put a Pleasanton counter in as an optional role or something. He might belong on the field if you go with one of the other options, like either Hooker or Reynolds is in command. But whatever. He ain't in the game, and there's a counter for the Cav Corps. And no means to like create it, as it were. Anyway, jumping back over. So yeah, the 2nd Corps for the Confederates is kind of getting around the flanks of the Union 3rd Corps. I think it's got to fall back or continue falling back in the morning. And likewise, the 1st Corps in Beaufort are badly outflanked here by McLaws, and the rest of the 1st Corps is coming up in place, while the 3rd Corps kind of has them pinned down in the front. This is not a good-looking situation. I think the Union is in a shitload of trouble, and if they can't kind of get the edge, they're going to be in a world of hurt up there on the ridges. This could be a fairly massive Confederate victory. If the Union is taken piecemeal rather than able to form a defensive location. Now, historically, the 1st Corps and the 11th, for that matter, held the Confederates off for a fair amount of time, allowing the Union to get into position. I don't feel like this Union position is of the type that it can hold things off, but we got the nasty railway cut back here, and if I can pull back more along that and refuse that flank, but that's assuming I get lucky and get the initiative. It's not just luck, but some of it is. And get the initiative die roll. I can get that moving right away. Big thing is, this is July 1st here that we're entering into. All this maneuvering and a little bit of sporadic fighting happened back on June 30th, which means that, we're having Gettysburg a day early. Does that really matter? Not so much. The positioning and the fact that the entire Confederate Army has swept down. Why? Because the stupid victory conditions. I don't believe them. If I truly believed them, I would have held off the Confederate units from moving into place and taken, the guaranteed basic strategic victory for doing nothing and not coming in and fighting a battle. But as it is, I just don't think they work. And also as it is, the Confederates can win simply by being defensive by these rules. But, and they don't have to worry about protecting any supply lines or anything along those lines. I'm kind of trying to change the flavor of that. And the Confederate Army is coordinating to come onto the field at once because their supply lines were obviously threatened. And they're moving into place to defend those lines. For the Union, they had very little problem in basically traversing and positioning themselves as far forward as they have. Again, on June 30th. You know? So it's like, there were rules to attempt to restrict their movement. I cheated a little bit, or erred, whatever. In a couple of cases, some units maybe moved a little further than they should have. However, I think I could have gotten to the positions we're in without a hell of a lot of problem. Might not have pulled the trigger, the trip line as quickly as it did. The other thing is Stuart has shown up already, and he's over here in command of, I guess, a pretty unified division, essentially. I no longer have anyone separate on his side, although Jones and Robertson, I think, start showing up here. I don't know when these guys come in. That's stuff that shows up on July 2nd. And honestly, I think it would be pretty hard for Stuart to come on the board once, like to come onto the operational map and be available once the Confederates have actually like gotten their army out of the way. If they're not holding the way open for Stuart, it's almost impossible for him to make it in. I don't know if the historical situation would be possible. He shows up, what, at the end of day 2 or something like that, historically. And I think almost all the Confederate forces are on the board already, and the ones that aren't in the area that Stuart would come in from. So, yeah, I just don't know. Anyway, we start to learn the game again because being away for a few days, yeah, I'm not too certain of what I'm doing anymore. Now, Lee has 3 points. In addition, on this 4 a.m. turn, I have points on the 3rd Corps and the 1st Corps already assigned, which I think means I'm going to save my points for Lee and use them primarily for the initiative roll to try to hit the flank there. Now, for the Union, it's a similar situation. A bunch of these corps have points gathered up at the 4 a.m. turn, and I have to add some of them together. So I've got 1, 2, and 11 here at 4 a.m. Then I look down, 12, 6, some more for 6, I guess. Oh no, that's 5:30, I think. I overwrote it. Another 4 for 3rd Corps, which I wasn't expecting to be up close. So again, a lot of the actual corps already have points pre-assigned from the PPPs. Yesterday, you know, both commanders were saying, be ready to do something in the morning, which isn't unreasonable. Again, I've had my discussion on this. I think neither this nor the CWB order system handles the situation absolutely correctly. It's like the CWB system, you tell them go do this, and if they don't like that, they don't do it. But what it doesn't really represent, except in the, well, I couldn't really do anything, I wasn't ready. type atmosphere. If you were ready to move and your orders changed to moving somewhere else, that should be easier, right? It's preparing your corps to move or whatever that is a large part of the actual effort. The question then comes down to how much does the leader feel about the orders you're giving them. There is none of the latter here. The only thing that comes out here is how much have you been given by your overall commander in terms of like, you should do something at this time. And some of it could be pre-programmed points like those are, which I will activate. And some of them could be points that the commander gives out right away. You also don't have the capability to send points far away. So for example, Lee had no capability to give orders to Ewell or to give him any points because I was always too far away from Ewell. The Union, with two commanders on the field, essentially, with Reynolds as a wing commander, and he's up there with Doubleday, have been generating a lot more points. Now Meade has been reduced by, his die rolls have been reduced by a couple of points because of Reynolds' existence, which means he only has a +1 on the table. But Meade would normally only have a +3. He has a +1 on the table, and Reynolds has a +4. So it's obviously worth having Reynolds as your wing commander for whatever that's worth. Putting a second wing commander is much more questionable because that's going to cost victory points, and it will also cost Meade, dropping him down to a -1. So he really kind of stops being of any value. But you'd have two unimpeded wing commanders who are better able to coordinate than the commander-in-chief is able to coordinate his own forces, or the commander-in-chief is able to work with on his... It all comes down to, look, who are you? If you're Meade, it doesn't really make sense that making these subcommands makes you able to generate more commands. But if you're the Union Army as a whole, it probably operates more effectively with two wing commanders. So I guess there's a reasonable argument for that. And an overall commander who's, trying to coordinate between the two wing commanders. But I feel a great confusion as to what I am in the game, in many ways. Okay, so I spent my points for the Confederates. I think I'm going to spend 3 on initiative, but I'm not positive of that. That gets me a guarantee. I've got 2 attack orders. That cost me, it's going to cost me some fatigue. It also cost me some 4 command points, 2 to put an extra chit in, and 2 for, 6 command points, and 2 for each command order, or each attack order. But I want him just hitting, Wadsworth up there, and trying to take him out. Otherwise, I went with direct orders. I'm going to try to do some artillery bombardment and stuff like that to soften the Union up. I'm not in quite as devastating a position against these units, so I don't really want to hit as hard. And I like the idea of the artillery to soften them up. Anderson I threw in the cup because he can just move up into place. Similarly, I think I put, who's this here? Hood. Hood I think I also put in the cup, yeah. I put both Hood and Pickett in the cup because it really doesn't matter to me their order in terms of how quickly they move. For Second Corps over here, I gave both Rhodes and Johnson direct orders, which means, again, they're going to move forward and try to exert pressure rather than attack. Early, I put in the cup. Stuart, I gave direct orders so that he's able to delay or whatever in order to kind of try to work around the Union Cav position there. Now, two of my units, Heath and Pender, were in R&R status. I had to pull them out of that, so that cost a command each for them. So the commands aren't hugely high right now on the Confederate side. At the same point, I looked at the Union, and all the units that were in R&R, except for the 1st Division here, are on the operational map, which I had decided, look, encampment formation prevents you from being in full R&R. I'm not sure if it does or not. That'll give the Union more points, but damn it, they need them right now. Okay. They may not deserve all those points, but basically all their divisions have, got to get out of R&R for free by the overnight situation. They wouldn't have been able to recover. I'm not entirely sure. See, to be in the formation they were in, they had to be spread out and they had to encamp, and it didn't say they have to spend to go into encampment. But again, the operational rules feel a little bit fly by night, to be honest. So we're in low light. Low light doesn't mean all that much. Yeah, it reduces zones of influence and zones of control, but I look at the low light effect on artillery. Seem to have lost it. And so night range is just 3 hexes for artillery. Zone of influence is still only 2, but in low light their range is reduced by 1 hex, extended range is by 3. Which means, 3 hexes, we get normal fire, but extended range, the Confederate guns can still fire out to 7 hexes. So there's a lot of visibility. It's just, not out to 10, 11 hexes, whatever it may be. I don't know. I think the Confederate guns simply can fire less far than the Union guns. So I don't know what the line of sight visibility would be here. I'm guessing more or less anything you can see on the tactical map is visible to you. If you can trace a line of sight. Now, what that means in terms of units moving on the map, well, when things move on here on the operational map, they show up as little flags that move around on you. So there's something there, but you don't know much about it. And it could be, 2 hexes away and all you see is a little flag. You don't know what kind of, full-size force you're facing. It could be Cav that's not revealing that it's Cav. I don't know, I guess they have little socks on their horseshoes or something. It could be a small infantry detachment, like a division or something. It could easily be a whole corps. It could be a whole line of corps, as far as you know. You have no idea just how dense a force you're facing. You just know that there's something there. And, yep. Great, huh? It's going to be kind of challenging for me to deal with the bombardment because I haven't done artillery fire in and of itself, but I've done it incorporated with melee. But I expect to see it on both sides. I will do the Union command phase next, and then we're going to break because the command phase has wiped me out, man. I'm going to break things up into 2 sequences. First, what's on the board. Then I'll go do what's not on the board after that. So Reynolds spent points, I think he spent a couple of, 1 point or something on Doubleday. In addition, he had a leftover 2 points, or a pre-programmed 2 points for the 1st Corps for the first thing in the morning. So I had a fair amount of points pre-spent and got a pretty good roll for him, which is important because I spent on Wadsworth himself to give him a directed. That means if I get initiative, I get to pull out before the Confederates hit me. And Robinson and Doubleday's divisions, I gave defend commands because it looks like they're in a location I don't mind being in, and I want the bonus of defense. Defense cost, I don't remember if it was 1 or 2 each. I looked it up and did it and then don't remember anymore. 2 each. But that puts chits in the cup for the defend orders. For Sickles, he had a shit ton of points. He had like 4 points assigned to him late in the evening for this turn. He's giving simple directed commands to these. I'm not trying to double march or anything like that. If the Confederates try to get a march on me, they're going to fatigue themselves, and they're not in contact yet. So I feel like it would be a mistake, right? So anyway, I gave them just the directed commands. Beaufort only got 1 point, which is not enough to put him under defend orders to start with, which means he's under direct command, which is not optimal if the Confederates attack. I know they're not, but he doesn't know that. Greg and Kilpatrick, I gave them both directed commands. Actually, I think Greg had enough. He could have dropped into defense or whatever, but the idea is to fall back and cover 3rd Corps, and this way I can handle timing issues. The final one that I did, most of it, the 2nd Corps is off map down here. They had a fair amount of points pre-allocated. Well, no, they had 1. But Hancock's decent enough, and he only has 1 unit under R&R anymore. It's one that he can't get to with command points, I think. I didn't look. If he could, he will. 6, 12, 13, 6, 12, 16, 22. Yeah, he's not able to get anywhere near the board to drop his command points. But he'll be able to move and get towards this so that he can eventually give them orders. These other guys, it doesn't really matter. I've got them under march mode because I get to resolve traffic problems with that. If they're not under R&R, I don't have to worry about traffic jams particularly. I get to put them in march mode and move them, wherever I want to, essentially. That's going to leave me, I've got still 2 points left with Reynolds. I don't know, do I want to pre-program any points? I got a whole bunch of points pre-programmed for the Corps that I'm dealing with. 11th Corps has a shit ton of points. I may want to use Meade, since he has 3 points, to try to activate stuff if I'm not happy with the numbers. But honestly, the Corps commanders are okay. None of them are inactive, so I don't have to deal with that yet. The only question is, somebody like Slocum with a 2 on the with a +2, he could conceivably go inactive, but I don't know if it's worth it. I think the initiative's maybe more valuable to try to get me Wadsworth out of there. Now, here's the crazy thing. Reynolds is throwing 2 points of initiative towards that. Meade is somehow throwing 3 points of initiative towards that. And nowhere near it. No idea of what's going on. He's way back here. But you generate more points total. The fact that Reynolds knows Meade is there makes him even more studly than he is to begin with. So I think that's probably what I'm going to do. I'm going to probably be throwing just about everything into March Command. If I didn't have that if I didn't take the, oh look, you're in R&R still. If I didn't fix the R&R situation by encampment, which I believe breaks R&R and only happens on the operational map, because you don't sleep on the tactical map. I mean, you do. It's just you're in lines and whatnot. If I hadn't fought, and I don't know what happens if you're in battle formation on the operational map and you go into encampment. Wow, it feels weird too. But anyway, each of these corps commanders would have to spend a point on each of their divisions to wake them up. They don't have to because they're just waking up from sleep as opposed to like whatever they were doing, which was probably more engaging than sleep. So the vast majority of the Union forces are under direct or under march orders just to get them moving. I don't have to worry about much. Got rid of all of the inactive roles. There were tons of points kicking around for people. 6th Corps had like 3. Just making sure I don't have any 4s that I didn't take into account. I kind of screwed up with 1st Corps. I made it more likely they'll do something, and 3rd Corps for that reason. I forgot about how the points work when you do a PPP. In fact, for all the Confederates as well. The way the points work is it's not a modifier to your die roll. You get your normal die roll, which could send you inactive if you don't have points. And that's kind of the problem. But then in addition, you get another die roll with bonuses. I'll have to remember that from now on. I can't really undo it. And that means nobody is pre-planning any points at this point because the action's about to start, you know. We've pre-planned for a very active morning, though, across the board for both. And that means we are at the initiative phase. And I am going to hold right there. I'm probably going to use all points, which means the Union has 5. I thought about giving some points to the 12th Corps just to make sure they didn't go inactive. And that's when I noticed what was going on, and I'm like, okay. But they were the most likely to actually go inactive. What actually will happen is you get more points from pre-planning points, I think, because you get another die roll. So just the way it works out, I think you'd average more points, but it would be possible for you to go inactive. Whereas the Confederates only have 3. So the Union's going to have like a +4 bonus on the die roll? Yeah, a +4 bonus on the die roll. Which means they're almost assured to be able to slip out of that noose. That's what you get for having a wing commander. Well, I tried to go to sleep before dawn, and I kind of dozed off maybe for 20 minutes or so after playing a bunch of Raid. The hope was that I would like sleep for 4 hours or something like that so I could go shopping. Doesn't end up being the case, and when I woke up before my video ended, whatever I was watching or listening to as I slept, the idea of getting up and putting another one on, I'm just like, oh, I gotta play some. So I'm up here and gonna start, and let's see, what did I say? I said I'm gonna spend all these points. So that was 5 for the Union. And 3. So it's a +4 for the Union as to who gets it. And the Union gets the initiative, which is very good for them because they have to pull out of there. Both sides paid pretty hard for it. So Wadsworth is pulling back. He's got a couple of artillery units associated with him. He's going to bombard with them. Well, we haven't done that. We did movement already. You can do it either way, but this is going to flip these guys over. And I'm at range 3, which is at the -1 for the sighting, still normal range. They can combine strength. Basic combat odds will be compared to a clear strength terrain of 4. So I've got... Shit. We haven't done this before, so... 14 to 4. I'm going to hit there. What does that mean? Well, basic combat odds 14 to 4. That's 3 to 1. So I get a +3 to get a combat DRM. And then Wadsworth is next to one of the units. So that brings me up to +4. The defensive terrain value, well, what are we shooting at? We're shooting at this. It's on a slope. Does that do me any good? A slope for a bombardment does give a -1 or -2 if the firing unit is targeting higher level units across the hex side. I don't think they're actually, they may be higher level. Let's see. Yeah, these slopes are all going down, so I'm still down in a valley down here. I tried to move as far as I could, but this is the best I could do. So we were at +4, that brings us to +3. Visibility DRM. Really? Based on time of day or weather. Let's look. We're in low light. That gives another -2. That's not particularly good. So that gets me to, I think, +1 on the table, which isn't great. Now, if I roll doubles, I cause a problem. I get an 11, 12. That's going to cause a morale check for the Confederate units there. Now, I think both units make their own morale check. And I could commit Confederate units to counter battery. This will use up their fire, turning them over like these guys are to where there's a bar. It's not real clear how big a difference there is. And the thing is, if we look at the firepower when you're fighting, it doesn't commit you to direct fire. So counter battery is probably worthwhile. But anyway, we have to make a morale check against these. So the artillery here has a morale of 6, and I think it's for each unit in the hex. I don't know what it gets for terrain here. Does it get the 1 for the bombardment factor, or does it get what it would get as some kind of slope? We're not sure what kind. Yeah, this is just such a hideous system. I think that's a lighter slope than this, so I don't know. It's fucking impossible. So that would be at best a -1 there as well. I should have looked that up before. So what are we talking about here? I don't know. I'm at +6, +7 for the slope. Anything else? I think I'm just at +7. So 7 and 7 is 14. That's going to give them a shaken result. And the unit underneath has a 5 morale. So it'll be a little weaker. Is morale done by stack, or I don't know. That's going to give like a higher value. Well, we have a shaken result on this unit. But is morale by the unit is the question. I'll be back with that. As far as I can tell, morale is done on a unit-by-unit basis. I did it right, and only the artillery unit is shaken. For whatever that fucking matters. It's hard to keep this thing in mind. Anyway, that is the Union turn for the Wadsworth Division. Whee! So I roll for another initiative. The Confederates get the initiative this time. They probably want to take it. I'll figure out what they want to commit for it. He chose to move Johnson, who's not under attack orders, but he's under directed orders, which allows him to move into an enemy zone of control. We're going to have a series of attacks across here. I don't know what the fuck wagons are like, but it looks like I'm going to be trying to butcher one of them. Wagons are an optional rule in the tactical game. And, hey, they arrive. The actual rules for movement, combat, and resupply are already included in the basic section. Oh, okay. Great. So, what I went to look up isn't there under the optional rules for the item in chief. So now I have to hunt for their effects, how they're attacked. I assume they're pretty fucking weak, right? But I don't know. They don't have like a strength point or anything on them, you know. But maybe they're just attacked at like, you know, I'll be attacking at like 20 to 1 or something like that and just destroy them. I have no idea. Okay, well, here we go. You can stack somebody with a supply wagon, and then it's under defend orders while so stacked. I didn't decide to do that. Undefended wagons have no defensive strength on their own and are eliminated if adjacent to an otherwise unengaged enemy unit at the end of an impulse. Then it's put in the available for reorganization box, and I'll figure out what's up with that. So there's the answer. They are captured, destroyed, whatever. Cool. We rolled the combat as before here, but I've got enfilade fire and all kind of nasty shit going on because I'm hitting all the way down. This guy's going to be in a little bit of trouble over here. But anyway, pretty good results there. I haven't made my risk check on Johnson. I can hold off because I don't have to make a morale check for him. I ended up doing 3 casualty, 3 cohesion hits, which is going to, according to this, force the loser to retreat and then make a morale check. But I've got to retreat through a hex that is in an enemy zone of control. Now, if I go through this hex, because it's occupied, I'm in better shape. So that causes me a cohesion hit and must continue to retreat until it reaches an unoccupied hex, but units retreated through takes a cohesion hit. But if I go through the empty hex, I take a 2 cohesion hits and a -2 DRM to my morale check. So I think it's better for me to fall back this way, cause a cohesion hit to that unit that hasn't yet been attacked. My retreat is how many hexes? I must retreat. I think it's up to 3. Maybe it's only 2. Trying to find. Looking for numbers, and every time I find a number, it's not a pleasant one. Up to 3 hexes, yeah. So I could retreat under Sickles, 1, 2, 3, and that would give me each an additional cohesion hit, which actually flips those units over, and a cohesion hit to this other little unit down here. This combat system is annoying. So just so many die rolls, so many checks, so many different things that it just, again, definitely less streamlined than anything else. Is it giving a more detailed picture? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not seeing it because I'm struggling too much with calculating all the modifiers and all that. But anyway, after that first attack and killing the wagon, we made another attack here, sent another unit back, flipping it over, and it's shaken as well. But that caused the attack here. Some of the units crossing the stream, not getting a terrain advantage. Here I was coming down a cliff, which for some reason is good. It doesn't feel like it's good. But again, they're shooting down and then scrambling after or something like that. Anyway, because it's not like if you look at TSS or even CWB when you're on a cliff, you can just do fire combat if you want. But if you want to melee down that cliff, it's not pleasant. And here it feels like everything's melee, so it's like it just feels inappropriate to me. But these guys were attacking, even though they had some numbers, they weren't particularly good. They're supporting fire from here, so they were unable to get particularly good odds, and they actually took a hit each and ended up shaken. One of them fell back behind the stream to get the defensive bonus for that. Have I gained any defensive terrain? I don't think so. So no effects of that on Sickles. And I feel like after making, the bombardment and this, I feel like I've played a whole turn, just in terms of like pain factor. Now, obviously, some of that is having to struggle looking at the rules again, getting used to the system again. Obviously, with the bombardment, I didn't know at all, nor with the wagon, but this wagon is... There's no reason for these to be flipped over, but I haven't unflipped them from the last day. I don't know if I've done that over there where they actually matter. But that means we go to another initiative roll. But Johnson's attack is mostly successful, although he took some casualties with what was essentially a soak-off attack over here to the north. And it turns out we're going to be hammering Sickles. Rhodes comes up, and I'm trying to get numerical superiority wherever possible. I don't know if it's going to work, because he's got a lot of artillery up front, and that's going to hurt, hitting that. That's going to hurt a lot, because they're doubled in strength. Firing canister. Well, we'll see. It's so funny because most games I can kind of figure out either, hey, what am I on the CRT, or what are the good fire combat odds, and I do some distance firing or whatever. But here, I'm just got a whole fuckload of modifiers to deal with. And the only way I can look at them and get an idea is to go through the entire list. And when I do so, well, I don't want to do it beforehand, because it's just too much fucking work to do twice. So, charge! Actually brings up a point. If you make a system too burdensome, that like people don't want to pre-calculate, people can't just glance and say, oh, that's a decent attack or whatever. And it's not hidden units like OCS has or whatever, where, hey, do I have a good chance? Do I not? Here I feel like I've got him surrounded. Bad things should happen to him, but I'm not sure. He's got a lot of fucking guns there on that line, and I'm sure it's going to hurt. But if you make a game too cumbersome to calculate and figure out what's going to happen, you get a historical, I think, activity by the players? Like, would I make this attack? Well, look, I'm supporting that attack. I don't have attack orders, but that one worked pretty well. Let's see if we can trap him there. But we may end up getting repulsed. Funny, because as I started to move my units, my feeling was, I've got great odds here. But again, I'm not so sure when I start looking at it. So I got pretty good die roll combination for the first attack here, even though the odds, it only gave me like a +3 modifier and a -3 to the defender. That caused a route through because he can't go through the enemy zone if he can help it, which causes additional cohesion hits. This is the unit that just routed or retreated or whatever. And every single one of those units has to now make a morale check as well because they're not of the same brigade. So, you know, this is going to cause another 4 morale checks for this combat, each of which is 2 dice. It's just, it's hideously, like, intensive in terms of die rolls for this game. The things that I tried to do with my role-playing game was to try to make it so that a single die roll resolved everything. Now, unfortunately, it was multiple dice die rolls, which is problematic. But one 30-sided die was the base determinant. And then you had to roll other things. But honestly, you know, for anything where you have to do multiple things, you really want to, like, have everything as determined by as few die rolls as possible. It's one of the problems I have with things like, you know, a to-hit roll and then a defensive roll and shit like that. And this game just has way too many dice being rolled all the time. That retreat through caused some additional problems and additional cohesion hits. This unit took 2 additional cohesion hits, is broken, and didn't have anywhere, well, actually, I can retreat it into the hex with the shaken units. Which doesn't cause any problems, I think. Yeah, because retreat into an enemy hex, or a friendly hex, is only a problem if they're different brigades. Because you don't want to mix up brigades, right? All right, so that was these 2 units attacking. Now they've set themselves up so that there's an enfilade attack on Humphreys here. To create another enfilade situation. This one, again, that was not a great combat situation. We were rolling at even dice, but again, we got a pretty good result. Not the one you're seeing here. That was after some morale checks and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, there's so much randomness to this system as well that honestly assessing what the results are likely to be is very difficult. And the fact that, like, as far as I can tell, combat is not simultaneous, so you can get a breakthrough and generate an enfilade or whatever, and thus really improve your situation, means that, yeah, you can get some pretty good attacks in. This is, I believe, the resulting chaos after Rhodes' attack. Rhodes got really fucking lucky when it comes down to it. It doesn't look like he did much, but he was attacking at low odds across the board and managed to gain some ground, push some units back. I have to say, he should be pretty damn happy with what results he got out of this. Sure, this guy got knocked back. We got some hits here. This was kind of an even fight. Both sides did a hit to the other. But yeah, it's... and this is a bloody mess. And I don't know what... Like, I want to stop at this point. I really do. This system is just so painful. Like, if it were a tiny, tiny little battle, I wouldn't mind it too much. But This is a brigade representation of Gettysburg. It it should be a lot smoother than it is, and it just feels so damn clunky that I don't want to find out who's going to get the next action. I really don't want to know. I'm going to pause for now. We'll see if I have the stomach to go on. This may just be too much for my taste. It's a real pity, but it has failed in the operational game to convince me that it handles anything to do with the operational mechanisms in play. There's no way I'm going to make it through the whole battle, right? I think maybe I lie, but it's failed at the operational game to represent things in a way that I felt was at all decent. And now the tactical game is just a fucking nightmare to play. I mean, you know, yeah. And it's not just the rules, it's the mechanisms. The mechanisms are too cumbersome. I know some people complain about the rules being a real problem. You know, I feel like unless I'm completely missing something, they can be decoded, but and you can figure out what they probably mean. Especially in the tactical game, they seem to be fairly reasonable. But you know, I'm thinking about, but if I take a certain hex, if there's any terrain advantage to a hex, that's going to cost army morale. But if we're just fighting out in the open, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And there's nothing other than taking terrain. I don't think there's much that generates victory points. I mean, let's look at the army morale chart here. If I can find the fucker. So many goddamn charts. Army morale. Yeah, killing stuff does something. All right. Ooh, and cav are really worth a lot. Yeah, I thought the terrain was the only thing. Confederate artillery doesn't want to fire. So they have a 1 in 10 chance of causing a victory point, a morale impact. We killed the supply wagon. That gets... If the Confederates had any hits against them, they would get 3 back for, like, pillaging that supply wagon. And do divisions break it? Yeah, divisions getting tired hurts your morale. But then you can recover morale, and again, it's through the reserve mechanism, which is, again, like, yeah, you're committed to battle. Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know. Like, how much value am I going to get out of playing this piece of shit? Bad in most of my house, heat-wise, it's like, you know, almost 8 in the morning. And I'm thinking, I'm really tired, but I could go shopping. But then I walk into this main living room area, and just the sun coming in is so heavy. I go outside, it's not bad at all. But instead, I've decided to try playing another Impulse or two. I want to fight my way through as much of this as I can bear. Got another Confederate initiative, and I'm trying to think of what I want to do. My options out of direct actions. McLaws did not do his attack, did he? Why am I shaking then? What's going on up there? Oh. So I moved him under attack. I fucked up. That's what I did, right? Or was that Union? I think that was Union battery fire against me. Yeah, that was the initial Union move that gave me that shaking. I could activate McLaws, who's under an attack order, and if I don't attack with him, I still pay the penalty for being under the order. I was hoping to get a rush on him in an ugly position. So that's one thing I could do. Another thing I could do, and that's probably what I'm going to end up doing, much as I don't want to. Other things I could do, Pender and Heath, but the thing is, I'm facing a lot of artillery up here. Pender's in direct orders. My intention had been to move up a little closer and bombard him. But I'll probably suffer if that happens. So I think I'd rather see McLaws try to break through and see what I can do with them. But those shaken units are problematic. Anyhow. Other options are things like I can draw from the cup and move one of the units that, I'm just trying to reposition. That feels like a waste though, so I think I undergo McLaws, and that's going to cost him some fatigue because he is under an attack order. I could wait, and try to hope that the Union burns me a couple of times and just burn those McLaws orders so I don't pay as much. But I've already paid command points for the extra activation, and I think that actually should have already cost me something as well. I've done this before, but in addition to all the mechanical crap going on with all these die rolls and everything, I also have to pay attention to keep my brigades together, right? All right, sure. When I'm playing a regimental game, it makes sense that I'm keeping my brigades together. But here I'm playing something that's it's a brigade level game, but with multiple counters per brigade. And it's really kind of painful. Like, if I look at something like TSS, I can have brigades interspersed, which is probably not realistic, right? But I can have them interspersed as long as I keep the command radiuses okay. Here, I've got to keep the entire brigade together. It's just part of the rules. I can't have like lost units straggling around. Now, obviously something like this, he's got to try to fix that. Just like with something like Banish All Their Fears, you got to try to fix the situation. That's going to be a mess to resolve too. God. But my eyesight is not all that good, so I have to tilt my glasses down and look real careful. And then there's artillery on top of infantry units because they're allowed to be there, so I have to paw through the stacks to figure out what goes where. And it's just not pleasant. Nothing about this game is pleasant. So I'm launching that flank attack. I got 1.5 times movement, which is fairly likely when you're taking attack order. It's going to look pretty good over here, but once I get down here, it starts getting really ugly. I got a bunch of attacks that none of them are really good. And I was trying to avoid this cliff here because I didn't want to hit that. And that ended up getting me in kind of an icky position. I think I have to attack 2 stacks at once in one place. Sort of. It generates contributing fire. Unactivated units are stacks that are adjacent to activated units currently engaged in combat and also in the ZOC of the units being attacked. Can lend a modifier. So I actually don't have to attack, I think. The system's so fucking weird. So yeah, I can kind of concentrate. And sure, there's going to be a +1 modifier, which is the same as an odds shift. So it's a pretty big deal, but it's not as big a deal as attacking at like 1 to 3 or something like that. The thing is, artillery seems to be able to roll into combat and fight in a way that, honestly, I don't think is legitimate for American Civil War. You could convince me I don't know. It feels far too mobile and able to just get into, in part because you can, if you have a movement point left, you can move into any hacks. But it just allows for, artillery to be positioning itself right in the line of battle, firing canister on the attack. That just does not seem reasonable. Am I misunderstanding something? I don't know. But it feels like I can get this tremendous artillery support. I could still get quite a bit of artillery support just by parking it behind. This thing got retreated through, so it's shaken, has taken a cohesion hit, but it's being attacked under defend orders. Thing I'm not sure of. I was attacked from the rear. There was no terrain back here. At least I don't think there was. But there's a cliff over here. Did I lose that cliff? That would be 4 Army morale points. I'm saying no because I wasn't attacked across the cliff, but I don't know. Here we managed to hold that ground, and now I start going down the line. I'm having a hard time telling how this combat went. First of all, there's all these shaken markers. I don't know who's Union, who's Confederate under here. That's a Union unit. That's a Union unit. Jesus. So this is the Confederate line. There's wagons in danger. McLaws is pushing up against this one. These guys are pushing here. But on the other hand, over here, things went very, very badly for the Confederates. I mean, not terrible, not the way things went for Sickles, but it's still, it's not a good attack. And I've got another attack coming, which is going to fatigue me more. I think McLaws is going to want to withdraw after this. I didn't remember. I get a little flag on top of McLaws. I'm just going to put it over here. That's to indicate that he's still under attack orders. That has some impact or another. I don't remember what it is. It's not the defend order bonus. If a division conducts an attack, at the end of the impulse, place a flag side up. As a reminder, the division will retain its attack orders combat DRM for the remainder of the game turn if engaged by the enemy. This includes being forced to attack under defend. Yeah, so I get like the +3 for being under attack orders. Probably not gonna, the Union's probably not gonna try to push me back, but I've got that momentum going, is what it's intended to show. I hope I remember to remove that flag at some point or another because I need it over there later on, but yeah. Now he has a follow-up attack order. As long as no non-attack order comes through for him, he gets to keep this flag until the end of the turn or whatever. Oh boy. And I should have marked off 6 boxes for McLaws, which I have. Once again, conducting a division's attack, it's just so fatiguing. I think it's bedtime. And comparing this to all the other games that I'm used to, this is just so fucking fiddly and annoying. And I'm not at all convinced. Now, again, maybe I'm not getting something in the rolls, but I'm not at all convinced artillery can slide up and unload its canister at you. It feels like I've got armored units here, right? It feels much, much worse than similar type of situations that I remember, like when I misplayed Terrible Swift Swords rules, where artillery was able to do that. They don't seem to be impacted at all. Like, I look at the artillery rules, artillery and movement. Must be in command range. Can only move with a single division, sure. Nothing's exciting. Oh, there it is. Artillery may never enter an enemy zone of control. Okay. Well, there we go. Yeah, because that was feeling completely ridiculous. Now, what does that mean? That means the artillery can sit back and support. And what I'm going to do, I can't undo the firings that I've already done, but what I can do is I can pull these guns back a hex and say they were supporting fire. They wouldn't have been as impressive. And over here too, this Carter gun could be here, I guess. I don't know. I'll look through and find all the guns and pull them back. But why didn't that fire? I think that must have fired. At the very least, I'm not in a zone of control anymore. Wonderful. Fucking arrow. At least I won't be able to take advantage of it again. And we'll just say, look, the Confederates had some really good attacks. But it is a big deal because I was able to roll up there and fire canister by cheating. And that should not have happened. That's one of the kind of things that I'm like, what the hell? And where do you find it? You find it in the artillery and movement rules. Sure, it makes sense there, but I looked in a number of other places and it didn't remind me. Like, this is not under the normal, it's just something you have to remember. But I did look for it and didn't find it, and it's just like, fuck. But I blame me for this more than the rules. It's just like, there's so much to hold in your head, and you're doing so much mental gymnastics to figure out, what the die rolls are for the combat and whatnot. And they don't really give... So there's games that have complex combat systems, and I'm thinking here like Empires in Arms, EU, which uses a derivative of that, Le Grand Guerre, which has these rounds and rounds of combat in a hex, that you keep fighting off, that are mechanically complex, but give you lots of decision points within the combat, and also give you more narrative. Here, the narrative for me is looking at a table and what I'm capturing out of it is, what are the odds modifiers for all of this? That's what it's really coming down to, is working my way through this chart. And that's the only story I'm getting out of the game. And that's where, it's getting in the way of me being able to make any kind of tactics. It's getting in the way of me paying attention to the rules and where they are. And that's where I said, put a cumbersome enough system and people like me at least, start fucking up the rules and start doing things like rolling into combat with their tanks, at Gettysburg. How much of a difference does it make? Well, yeah, it makes a big difference, because although the combat's very variable, Confederates got on the high end of the rolls, at least with Rhodes, who took advantage of some of that artillery. He should have gotten shredded a little bit worse than he did, and this probably shouldn't have succeeded as well. But again, and now look at, I can't tell what the fuck's going on with all these shaken markers all over the place, right? It's just like, there's nothing that looks like solid lines or anything. There's just a bunch of red, and that kind of mixes in with the Confederates. At the very least, they should have different markers for the different sides if they're going to have that much of a mess. Like, I'm used to similar color, markers, say in CWB, but the lines stay the same. You don't have these punching through the lines and all this kind of crap unless you're doing a lot of melee, which, of course, I would never do. Oh, I'm back up to play a little bit more. Fighting my way through one activation at a time. And I'm getting Bernie's, or no, Humphrey's activation. Try to pull him out, get him away. But I realized, hey, let me make sure about something, and yeah, I was wrong. So, each broken member unit causes a divisional morale loss, which you don't get back for becoming unbroken. Being flipped to reduced strength side causes a couple. So I've got to generate some additional of those morale factors, because it's not just fatigue, it's also losses. And I've got a few points perhaps on both of these divisions that I have to mark off. Wadsworth had 1 unit flipped. Humphreys had 4 flipped and a broken unit. So those are the results there. And now I go back to what I was trying to do. Here's the problem I wanted to talk about. If I want to move units back, I have to essentially look at the frontmost units, figure out how far they can go back, and then that'll determine how far the guys they have to walk through can go back. How is this so different from other games? I don't know exactly. I feel like I'm maneuvering more or something. It's feeling a lot more painful and cumbersome in this game than it is when I have to do something similar, like fall back with a line, a couple of hexes in another game. I don't honestly know how to describe it. Maybe it's the amount of counters there are and the crowding or something. I know that I'm finding it much, much more painful in this game than I do in, well, it's hard to tell with TSS because it's been a long time since I played that, but in the line of battle, in the CWB games, whatever, where I felt like I could, I didn't feel like I had this kind of disruption. You know what I think it is? I think it's the many hex with retreats that are happening, in part. I don't know. I really don't know. Because I'm used to, in those games, a unit doesn't just retreat 2 to 3 hexes. It does it if it's routed. And then the rest of the line catches up and defends those routed units. But here, I don't have routed units that I can't operate. That may be the issue, is that I'm able to operate all my units, right? And I'm not just falling back to cover the units that have already retreated. Also the case that the terrain is more complex in this, and the effects of zones of control, zones of influence and all of that, and then you can move an extra hex if you have any movement points left, is all added to that. So I look at a unit like this, and if I want to move this back, well, what does it do? Well, actually it can't, because I'm going into a zone in either case. So I can like fall back 1 hex. So honestly, I can't withdraw very much. On top of that, these guys are just basically stuck here because I can't move artillery into a zone of control. So I don't have much choice in the matter. I could launch an attack, but I'm surrounded and in hell, which is really intriguing just how much damage this attack has succeeded in doing compared to what I'm used to. Now again, in some cases the artillery rolled up and did better than it should have. I'm letting that go. I think what this situation means is that I have to essentially counterattack. Now Sickles, who was involved in this combat, I wanted him for the extra die roll modifiers, ended up getting a wounded result after 2 losses to each unit. I have to do that before I start doing any of the morale checks. And it says there, roll 1 die again on the wound results table. Interestingly enough, that's not here. Flip it over thinking it'll be on this side. There's another risk to general, also has that star. I don't know where that table's gonna be. But I gotta tell you, you shouldn't refer me. Oh, there it is, wound results table. Yeah, right near me. Okay, and so let's see what happens to him. We get a 5, general badly wounded, removed from game. Any stacked or adjacent units take a morale check with a -1 DRM, but they already have morale checks on them. I don't think they take another one. I think they just get a -1 DRM. Actually, this guy gets one immediately. But that means Sickles is gone and is replaced by Bernie, I guess. Ooh, I don't know, this looks like the safest place. Bernie's a division commander. So he shifts, and actually, this is going to show up with Bernie. There we go. Of Humphreys' units now has been destroyed and is over here. That caused a couple more hits over there. But now we got to look up on here and see what happens if that divisional leader dies. First thing we look over here to see, Union division officer killed, wounded, or removed. So that's going to be 4 more over there. No, this was not division leader. This is the corps leader. Division's original officer leaves to replace the lost corps commander. That's going to cause 1 hit to Bernie, though. Like, you know, this all makes sense, right? But again, it's like this tedious set of things, whereas there's just sort of a baked-in effect that happens in other systems. Here I'm looking up on all these charts. Okay, so that was that. Now I keep looking. Used extra movement, end of impulse in which majority of units. Oh shit, I forgot about that. Yeah, when you get a extra movement activity result, I've not been doing this. When you get this, if more than half the units of the division use it, and that's happened, you get a DMF off that. Fucking hell. I thought that had been the case, but I didn't know where to look it up. Okay, but now here we have a corps commander who died. Surely that's worth something. I don't see any effect on army morale, and you wouldn't think it would be on divisional morale. So, oh, wait, here, wait. Okay, Union officers command rating if eliminated, division, corps, and army. Okay, so we lost a corps commander, which means that'll be, oh God, that'll be 6 army morale that I have to mark off. Are we having fun yet? This is a proportion. The total losses that have happened since I've swept forward so far, including terrain losses, now this leader loss, have gotten me to 10 victory points. The Confederates have 10. But they already had 107 banked. So you can kind of see this is, I mean, this is not a devastating continued attack or anything like that. But this is a good sharp engagement that I think we've gained, we've gained some ground. That was part of it. We've killed a leader. We've smacked some units around, and yeah, I mean, for us to get to 100, we'd be what? Nearly a third of the way towards destroying the Army of the Potomac would be what we banked. And that was what we banked because we left camp early and are fighting on, you know, very early in the morning now on July 1st. All right, I think I've done an activation there. God. There's just so much fucking shit to look up and everything. And look, I've played games like Rollmaster that people's complaints are having to look up, in the role-playing side, are having to look up a lot of stuff on charts and whatnot. And I can see where it's going to get smoother. I'm going to get more used to it. I'm also going to end up continuing to miss things and forget things. And as I get more used to playing and it gets smoother, it's more likely that I will just neglect important pieces of these charts forever, because they won't be on my mind, right? So something like me, you know, sure, I'm doing it anyway, right? The end of impulse in which majority of units used an extra movement activity. I vaguely remembered something. I remembered briefly looking, couldn't find it. Or maybe just said, screw it, I don't know. But here it is, baked in where it needs to be. But it's like, basically, I would have to, after everything I do, anything I do, I would have to look through these two tables to see, did anything do anything? Did I have an effect? And again, I'll get more used to them. And a few of them I will probably not get more used to. So for example, here's one. Each cohesion hit gained by Confederate artillery due to ammo depletion is worth an Army morale point. There's a reason for it. Because they don't have much ammo. It's a weird way to express it. It doesn't affect the fact that that unit is low on ammo. That's already the cohesion hit. It doesn't affect the ammo that units are going to be able to get later in the game. All it affects is how long Lee wants to stay around. Okay. He's going to leave once his reserves are low enough, is basically, I guess, what it is. But I can regain that ammo, or the effect of that ammo, by putting units in reserve. Again, that just doesn't make sense. Anyway, there's just so much that doesn't make sense in this game, and so much like cumbersome manipulation between the two. It's like, if you're going to make a game this heavily and demanding on the players, it ought to be fucking perfect, right? Again, there's, you know, I look at this as, this is, if I put enough effort in to get something working, like if I could put that kind of effort in, this is the kind of game I would design. And it's one of the reasons I don't design games, right? Because I know that they're bad. Like, I know that I can't resolve the core problems with the ideas that I have. I took a 2-point hit on the divisional. I've already rolled for the next activation, and I'm like, not sure what the hell I want to do. The Confederates have gotten it, and I feel like I gotta use McLaws at some point again, and I might as well keep going. But he's so beaten up, I don't feel like it. But it's like, if I don't use him, I wasted the extra chit I bought. And if I use him for attack, it's going to cost 2 more fatigue, as well as whatever I do to myself attacking. But beyond that, as soon as I got back up here after fixing my pipe a little bit, I paid 2 divisional morale for the unit that I destroyed, but but I didn't remember to do the Army morale. Each friendly infantry unit eliminated by combat is 3, so the Union actually takes 3 more hits on their Army morale for losing that unit. The paperwork and everything for tracking these, it's not that bad. What's bad is having to read this chart again and again and realizing and that you've forgotten something and having to go look and see, wait a minute, didn't I miss something there? Didn't I miss something there? Ah, Jesus. Definitely missing the pointless ease of the operational map. You know, even though it didn't make any sense and doesn't really work, at least it wasn't this painful. The main problem with doing this attack with McLaws is I have to figure out whose units are whose under all those fucking shaken markers. I think McLaws actually has to attack with this unit, which is problematic. Here I busted my way through and took out the entirety of the Union supply, the Union Army Reserve supplies. Oops, maybe I shouldn't have moved it to the front, eh? That's 3 wagons, and I found something that I had missed. If you recall, I was looking and I said, enemy supply wagon eliminated gets you -3. Yeah, friendly divisional or army supply wagon is +5, +10 over on the army. So that's going to be 35 more army points for the Union collect. Maybe they shouldn't have moved on the operation, on the tactical map this quickly. But again, you know, that 107 points was just, I had to. And also other things. But beyond that, I think I actually do have to attack with this unit because he's under attack orders. I think he's forced to actually continue the attack, but I have to look that up. Anyway, 35 more points on the Army track. Before I start hunting through the rules, that gets me almost to the 50-point victory point level, plus the 107 that I had for, you know, for trying to almost sort of try to keep historical with the Confederate raiding prospects that they would get no points for if they were actually playing Gettysburg. But like if I was playing the Gettysburg Tactical, I would not have those 107 points. And indeed, had I done the historical delay period and whatever, I would have well over 200 points in the bank at this point. I.e., the Confederates can't possibly lose the scenario if they're fighting the actual Gettysburg. But not if they just play the tactical game. They don't get any of those points. They only get them if they follow their basic, like, what they actually did playing the operational game. What I'm thinking is that Barber's thesis is that while Lee lost the Battle of Gettysburg, the Gettysburg campaign was probably a fair to middling success overall, which I would not characterize it as. All right, anyway, I keep coming back because I don't want to fucking have to look up the rules on whatever the hell it is. Yeah, whether I have to attack with that remaining unit of McLaws that is in a zone of control. I don't remember. I don't know. I might be able to just withdraw. I really don't remember. I'm just fucking shit up left and right. I don't. There's no point in this anymore. In the combat phase, and I remembered this. I really did. But all enemy units exerting a zone of control on units of the currently active division must be attacked by all adjacent active units in the ground combat. So I did have to do that soak-off attack that I thought I did earlier, And then later on, I was making attacks. See, the problem is, here's the fucking problem. Direct support. Infantry, artillery, and cavalry units adjacent to engaged units but not themselves adjacent to the enemy can contribute. Okay. That's direct support. Let me think about what that fucking means. See, I thought the direct support was something else. Yeah, I'm just, this is fucking pointless. I've screwed up completely, and so those Confederate attacks would have been nowhere near as effective as they have been, and you know, I don't know if I see any fucking point in continuing. I've screwed up enough of this game at various times in it. And then on top of that, it is just no fucking fun. I am finding, though, that like shit that I thought should happen is happening. So like this guy would have to attack both of these. But I'm not at, now I would have to look up under attack orders. Would he have been allowed to pull back? Because he didn't have to be there. But earlier attacks that I did down this line, I was picking my attacks. When I came over here, I picked my attack, coming with the Union for the counterattack against the Confederates. I got to pick my attack. I wouldn't have gotten to do that, and that would mean this surrounded guy would pretty much have died, rather than me being able to push Confederate units out of the way a little bit. And just, God damn it. Yeah. It did not help that, like, I went from fiddle, 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 oh, doing nothing, little tiny battle over here, and then boom, I'm in the midst of like the biggest fucking fight right off the bat here because of the nighttime delay and whatnot. But again, you know, somewhere in my head, I knew that I had to attack all adjacent units. I remembered that from previously, and I think I just didn't want to fucking face looking up in the rules. Like, I don't want to face anything in this fucking horrible game. So I could have pulled back, as far as I can tell. I don't fucking know. You know, part of it is I felt like I was under attack orders. So, gosh, I've got to attack. In a sense, you kind of want to, because you're using up divisional morale factors to make the attacks. But, you know, what happened here was actually within the realm of possibility still, I think. The artillery was a bigger deal. Moving the artillery up was a bigger deal than what I'm facing right now. I'm going to go away, and I'm going to try to chill out a little bit. And, you know, maybe shake out to a point where I can play this game without fucking up consistently. Just keep going from where I'm at. You know, just like big what if over here in terms of, hey, look, the Union came marching way faster than they possibly should have been able to. Well, not because of the rules. A little faster than they should have been able to due to the rules, but way faster than they should have been able to due to their exhaustion from the forced march they had already just made to get into that position that they start the game in. But I think what we're seeing here is within like the realm of possibility of the First Corps being outflanked like this, of the Third Corps being outflanked like this. Given that I was able to do those movements, I think it would be possible for a hit of this nature. And anyway, the hell with that. I don't really care about that. What I care about is trying to get to the point where I can start seeing whether or not the system can be playable, right? Like, there are people who like this game, okay? And I could use the excuse of they only liked the tactical game. Now, whether or not it can be playable by me is another question entirely, but I get the feeling that as I entrench myself more and more in it and get used to these little tables and memorize them enough, maybe, maybe. Still got the problem of there's absolutely no reason that anybody has to attack because there's no terrain requirements, right? Like, except that being on the defensive isn't necessarily an advantage. If you have the numerical advantage, you might want to attack the enemy in order to rack up points for knocking them off terrain, right? But on the other hand, you're going to take bigger casualties for attacking them, which should matter more than I knocked them off some terrain. But yeah, when people judge who won the battle, one of the big things is who held the ground, right? So yeah. Who held the battlefield at the end of the day? And when it comes down to it, casualty-wise, I don't know if you can really say. The Confederates definitely took more casualties than they could afford. And, of course, they could have just put their entire army in reserve for the fourth day and gotten back all their points. Oh, no. What a stupid system. Yeah. I don't fucking know. But yeah, at the very least, I want to be able to get an idea of whether or not, outside the victory conditions, outside all the problems I have with the way those are designed, outside of things like the reserve roll, whether or not I can just mechanically play the game, right? And be able to do the things necessary to generate those victory points, etc. Because one of my feelings is that it's just too cumbersome. It's just too cumbersome. And I don't feel like I've given it a fair enough chance. I want to be able to at least test that out, even though I'm going to have, wildly ahistorical results, because a couple of Union divisions have already kind of melted. The Army, the Army Artillery Reserve supply train is gone. I pulled Tyler off the board because he doesn't have anything under his direct command right now. I could put him back in if I release some of that artillery from First Corps or Third Corps, whatever. But right now, he doesn't command anything. He was just commanding the wagons before. Yeah, back up here, it's just about raid time, a little before. And the Confederates got to move Pickett, pulled from the cup, because I didn't want to take any of the directed actions, which is basically the Pender, Heath, and Stewart, all of which are close in contact. And I kind of want to let the Union have a chance to get away if they're trying to. Or if they're going to fire their artillery, I want them to fire first. Although, honestly, the way I'm interpreting the artillery, I think it's best to actually just march in and attack, because the artillery can bombard you on an active move, and it can still fire in direct combat if it's attacked, or in supporting fire if it's adjacent to you and other units are attacked. Well, I'm not sure about that. But in direct combat, when it's actually attacked, now direct support, I'm not sure it can do that. Wait, what the fuck was direct? I am trying to remember the differences between them. They're a fucking weird system. So I moved Pickett instead of taking one of the active units, but I think I'm actually making a mistake there. I'm thinking, make them fire at long range. Well, yeah, but if I'm gonna close, but that's the big if. I don't think I want to actually fully close with Pender or with Heath. So, although I could. And then Bernie's division, which is now under a different commander, and I forgot to make a leader loss check, didn't I? Oh, that would be another wound. Okay, now I remember the wound table being right here, and it's not now. It's over on the artillery side. That's why I couldn't see it. I found the same thing, but what I didn't find was the wound table that was right after it. So we got. We only roll one die. Sure, they're the same, but it's okay. We get an 8. Horse killed General okay, no DRM to any current morale checks. Okay. Should have done it before the morale checks. But he made attacks here, pushed some units back, and here, and no, here, I think. I don't fucking know anymore. It's just so complicated. I also have not made the Union morale checks for those 2 units. So I'll be, well, I don't know what I'll be. But I'll be rolling those. Oh no, there's no morale checks. Because this was kind of an engaged result. But these guys, the Union did win and push them back. I didn't find Bernie's brigade was able to withdraw because of how bad Humphreys is kind of tied up in the fight. So here's the requirement. Direct support, which for example this unit would have. I hope that it's not a Union unit. I just favored the Union again if it is. Yeah. Okay. I've been normally favoring the Confederates, but I've been fucking up left and right, so whatever. Direct support does not flip you. Being engaged, I think, does. But I think being engaged it's so hard to find the actual place where this is stated, because over here under in addition to direct support, uncommitted artillery can contribute support fire. Support fire flips you. I don't think direct support does, but I think that being engaged actually does. You can't find it there, but under the artillery rule. So, under direct support, it says you flip the units. Under engaged under fire support, it says you flip the units. Under direct support and under engaged, it doesn't say anything. But under ground combat, if engaged, units are flipped to their committed size at the beginning of the combat phase, may not lend support or bombard, and give 2 times their printed state when printed. Oh, see, now this is the where I saw this. If contributing, they give this. If offering direct support, if offering, yeah, I don't know. Bombardment flips you. I honestly don't think you get flipped for being engaged even. Which is okay, because that's grape shot. But direct support is fire that's not grape shot, but you're kind of close, so I don't know. I don't understand. Like, the rules do not just sink into me. I'm basically having to look shit up every time I want to apply anything. And this reminds me again of things like the banish all their fears, in the sense that, like, I sometimes find different answers. Maybe I'm wrong. Sometimes I can't find a chart next to the thing that I think it should be next to, and then it's there. And it's because the charts are like scattered about in weird ways. There's just a lot, and you really kind of have to get it all in your head, all the mishmash and mess of the rule book, to be able to play this at all effectively. So that is another factor in the pain of it all. There's the pain of the system itself, but then it's so badly organized in a lot of ways. If I do another one, we might see some fire combat or something. I'm trying to get a grasp on what the artillery rules actually say, But when I look at ground combat, it says, if engaged artillery units... No. If engaged artillery units are flipped to their committed side at the beginning of a combat phase, may not lend support or bombard, and give 2 times their printed strength factor. If contributing, they don't... Which is when you're within 1 hex, but not next to somebody who's active. They give a +1 bonus. Direct support flips them. Yeah, so I was right. If engaged artillery units are flipped. Yeah, so I've been doing it right. But I look at that, and for some reason, the first time I read it, it's this, are flipped to their committed side at the beginning of a combat phase. When I saw at the beginning of the combat phase, I thought that was a clause saying something about them having already been flipped, as opposed to, because I'm reading quickly and I just took a nap. So yeah, I have actually been doing it right. So for some reason, direct support doesn't flip them. Pretty much any other use does. And because of that, if I want to advance and engage, I just want to fucking do it. Because that'll flip the Union artillery and it won't get another shot at me. If I don't want to engage, which is kind of what I've been looking at, then I probably want to keep at range and trade shots. And this is going to be it for this little sequence because, again, I got a raid to do. Hood ends up moving again, and I make the choice again not to bring Pender in because, again, I don't think I want to close with him yet. I'm waiting for Anderson to come up and then have this completely surrounded. Hood is coming around. Now he's got a couple of options. He can try to cut off Sickles or he can try to cut off Doubleday. Either one is a very powerful move. And the Union Army is just in a shit ton of trouble, even without, without the cheating that I've done. I feel like they're in a big problem. Hood did, because I didn't... I could have given those guys move orders instead for the same price as I put them in the cup. And they could have moved a little further. Maybe not. No. But, well, Pickett could have moved a little further. But Pickett got stuck behind Hood because Hood hadn't moved fully out of Pickett's way. So, but at least there's a gap for... whatever this is. This is not Anderson. This is... Who the fuck is this? Oh yeah, this is Anderson's supply wagon and artillery coming up in the back, just trailing behind. But yeah, so First Corps is trying to move its way into place here, and McLaws is handling the outflank already quite effectively. He may need to be replaced because he's kind of battered. And I've got another... Oh, no, I don't have another. I made my second attack with McLaws. So, yeah, he may need to withdraw back, maybe throw himself into reserve or something like that, although reserve doesn't help, so he'd need to go into rest and relaxation, which doesn't feel terribly safe in a battlefield situation. He does have some fatigue on him, though, so it might not be a bad choice, and some cohesion hits. So if I want to actually recover, that's what I need to do. But yeah, First Corps or Third Corps is definitely in a shit ton of trouble, and they're both under some serious pressure right now. And remember, Third Corps still has Early coming up on them. So yeah, and First Corps has Anderson coming up. So whatever First Corps decides to do, like McLaws has already cut the corner the same way Johnson has, which means even more so than Johnson has, which kind of means to me that like I could choose to send Hood up this way to deal with Third Corps and wait and have Pickett come around. But then again, it would be cool to be able to relieve McLaws from the assault that he just did. It was only an hour, but I feel kind of beat up by it. And I feel like, yeah, I could recover this unit by just swapping a fresh unit in. And, my army would be in much better shape while I would still achieve that major goal of destroying one of the Union Corps. And maybe both. Anyway, that's enough words. I mean, there are things I like, but I think those things it's a Gettysburg-like situation in which I'm seeing this evolve in a really, really ugly fashion for the Union, just because the battle started way too early. In a sense, that's their own fault. They moved onto the map too early, but on the other hand, it's also the fault of those fucking 107 victory points that would be double that or more if I played out the historical situation, which is already pretty much an insurmountable number of victory points. So the Union's out of commands. The Confederates are out of commands other than Pender, who has been moved from direct command to the Cup due to a burn. And what do we got? Well, the most recent thing is Stuart moved over here to outflank Kilpatrick here. We had some artillery fire, some counter battery came back. The only real effect was to shake the Confederate artillery. There might be shaken markers hidden under other things. I don't mind so much where it's hidden under this, but there might be some that are not showing on the top of stacks. Again, part of the problem, because every unit has its own individual morale in this game, as far as I can tell. Other interesting things is Anderson went inactive and was not able to move very far. And what else? Heath moved up, didn't fire, and therefore there kind of is no fire actually, because there's woods in the way here, and I think this is just like I think the woods elevation puts it above, so you can't actually just shoot up a wooded hill, which makes sense usually, but it's hard to tell because elevation levels don't actually exist in this game. So I think this is one level higher, but I can't be sure because there's this, which is in between, right? There's not like an obvious color gradation to me between, like, I've got a hill, a slope here. This looks a little darker. So I think this may be two levels, in which case maybe they could shoot. It's a steep enough situation. I can't fucking tell with this game. Because it doesn't have a key that tells you, here are the numbers of the elevation and their colors. It doesn't have anything that indicates, and best guess is, yeah, I probably have a line of sight there for fire, but I don't actually want to take it. I don't know why. The cliff is a major impediment, and whatever. Like, maybe I'll have a line of sight next turn, and I didn't this turn, whatever. It really doesn't make much difference. We got Early coming on a little bit here. Yeah, and the only thing left is Pender, and he's not going to be a direct command, so he cannot engage now. But he could move forward. He definitely does not want to fire his artillery. Because the Union units have already gone, I don't know why they didn't fire their artillery to begin with. it actually doesn't hurt you. If you're actually involved in combat, you get to fire your canister anyway, but if you fire your canister, you get flipped. And that's what I think it works as. But again, the system leaves me with such a shaky feel for it all. Anyway, I guess the big thing again is Stuart moved around here, and yet another outflanking maneuver. And then with that last chit, we're on the operational, well, the move orders that are left. Because all the stuff that actually happens, and Pender just moved forward. I choose not to fire because the counter battery fire would be nastier. Problems with the operational to the tactical map conversion, I'm working on getting new units in, is any infantry division takes up 3 spaces, period. No matter how many artillery are attached, no matter how many infantry it has in it. So in some cases we've had units that couldn't fit in a hex, like with some of the Confederate units, like Johnson was stuck in a position where he actually couldn't be in the hex that he appeared to be on the operational map. Here, on the other hand, Geary was following as closely as possible with Ayres, but there's a gap. Now, I don't mind that, but again, it's like I couldn't move any further up on the operational map, and now there's an a problem that has occurred. Technically, I would have moved further. I was actually jammed by Ayres. It's fine. I'm much more bothered by the other case where a division is so large that it prevents the next division from being in the hex that it's supposed to. We're trying to get everything on the map and just play the tactical game and fuck the operational game from now on. I don't know if I remember, I don't think I mentioned this. I think I removed some of the shaken markers that shouldn't have been removed. You can't remove them if they're in a zone of control, zone of influence. So I think there were some up there that got removed early. It probably favors the Union a little bit. You know, I'm thinking about, look, the first time I played TSS, okay, I got so much wrong. I don't know that I'm getting more wrong here on the tactical map than I did that first time I played TSS. So it is kind of a, hey, let's let it go. I had this weird freewheeling game. It started out, it started out that the artillery units, much like the ones here, were able to do some really wacky stuff. And then I found the rules against that, you know. So this has been a common problem through my life, right? Not being able to read and remember all the rules. But then there was another, which was the headquarters units, which are funky anyway in TSS. Basically, they're a rifle strength point that fires defensively only. But I didn't know that they fired defensive only and played them. And they were just this really powerful thing because they have movement allowances of the leader, which is quite large. And they don't have to dismount or anything. They can just fire their rifles. And I kind of saw them as motorcycle troops or something. That's what they felt like. They still kind of feel that way because they still don't dismount and are able to fire rifles or rifle valued fire. So they can do some really nasty shit and they still are misusable in horrible ways. But that is just the system. But then the other thing that I found that was a problem, and I haven't decided on the resolution from, I have a couple of artillery reserve guns that didn't make it on the map. I don't know where to put them, but Tyler no longer has an artillery reserve because he's lost all 3 units that were under his command, which were the wagons. So I'm thinking I'll just like put the artillery reserve somewhere in the Meade area. He's down here, and bring Tyler back on in command of those guns. The Union's going to have some real problems if they keep losing wagons, though. Like, historically, they didn't have all their wagons on the field, so For example, the artillery reserve was not on the field. And there were a couple of corps that weren't on the field. And that, you know, at the very least, units could be sent back to reach them. I think the Union Artillery Reserve wasn't on the field, at least initially. The Confederates kept theirs off board, I think, the entire game, like off near Cashtown or something. Cashtown, is it? That's what I think it is. I don't know what this is. Where the fuck's Cashtown? Is that way down? Am I just mistaking? Yeah, there's Cashtown. Yeah, somewhere around there, or in that direction. And it might have been on the board on this game, because this game has a larger footprint than, yeah, it covers more of the ground than any other tactical Gettysburg game that I have. But for all that, it's still, I think, the worst. I don't know. I haven't played them all. Like, I still have a couple left. Going to the 5:30 a.m. turn. There was no change in the weather. We got Union forces coming on, some of 11th Corps here, 12th Corps coming here. A little bit of 5th ahead of them. A little bit of 6th coming in here. Hancock's on the board. I don't know if he has to be, like, I don't know which is easier, having him on the board and trying to reach these units with command, but his goal is to get up here so that he can get them out of R&R, because they never went into encampment, they just marched along. I might have been able to throw them into the operational map so that they would have gotten out of R&R for free. I didn't look that up to see how that's going. So yeah, tons of reinforcements coming in. Over here we have 11th Corps, you know, shifting its way on the map, coming in from that side. I don't know how big a problem that is for the Confederates. It's a little bit of a threat to Heath down here, potentially. 5th Corps also coming in from that sort of southwestern corner, and then 2nd and 6th mostly coming straight down the middle. One more division of 2nd is coming up this way, though. It's just a matter of the way the roads work. This looked the most efficient to me. Oh yeah, Huey's up there skirting around, and Merritt's coming on board. Imboden's over here. I'm gonna just bring every single fucking piece on the board, and the hell with it. Here's Tyler with the artillery reserve, the last couple of cannons that he has. I could just associate them with the division. That would probably make more sense. Then give him his own command. He's kind of annoying. This is Meredith's pieces, yeah. You know, it's like you're paying attention to, hey, which pieces should be on the board and which shouldn't, right? And it's kind of a hard thing to figure out. Since I only really have to worry about that late in the game, I'm going to move these guys, I don't know, maybe over here. I'll probably forget they exist if they're there, but that allows me to see a better shot of the map. We're going to load this one up. I got about an hour and a half that I could play before I have to go back to raid. It's after midnight, but that's the way my pattern has to work. Tomorrow is supposed to be stupid hot again, like 98. But then Wednesday, and it's going to go back up above 90. Wednesday is supposed to be in the mid 80s as the high. And it's supposed to be kind of cloudy and everything. So I'm hoping to be able to get food on Wednesday. Otherwise we're running into problems here. I mean, it's so fucked up because no, I'm not. Like, I've been without food pretty seriously at times in my life. I'm nowhere near and haven't been anywhere near those kind of levels of reduction. But the things I want are gone, you know. I don't really want to be eating rice and dried beans. I'm actually almost out of eggs, which is pretty serious, you know. But that's something I can get relatively easily. I don't have to go on a long walk for that. So yeah, we'll send this up. That'll probably take me a good deal of the time to package it and whatnot. And I don't know that I want to do another turn tonight. I don't know if I ever want to do another turn, but I do feel like I have to give this more of a shot, right? At least to see, can I play it without fucking everything up, right? And see what it plays like, and then see if I can sort of learn the patterns of that and not have it be quite so cumbersome. But it is one hell of a pain in the ass to get used to. And I don't see much that makes it worth it. Like, on the tactical level, not at all, and the operational is such, well, so on the operational, not at all, because it's so fucked up. On the tactical level, not for me. I can see arguments for why this system has advantages over sort of the the fire and move type systems or whatever that I'm more used to and happier with. But you know what? The thing that got me so excited about TSS was Stonewall, one of the first games I had. And it was oh look, I'm actually covering, you know, the details of fire versus melee and these different concepts and everything. And most of the games that I like tend to do so. Even if, yeah, sure, there's a lot of firing going on in melee. You know? It's actually one of the things that I felt like I kind of lost when the Napoleonic Brigade series went to version 3.0 was, yeah, I'm not getting that regular fire phase. Sure, I can fire my artillery, but that's artillery. It's not that impressive. But not getting the regular fire phase is painful. Painful. All right. Up it goes, I guess.